Discourse Analysis by Adriana Dittweiler and Brenna Davis. To begin talking about discourse analysis, I'd like you to imagine with me. First, imagine you're a substitute teacher in a building for a day. You go down to the teacher's lounge to have lunch and see two other teachers sitting eating. They greet you warmly and ask you how your day is going. They ask if they can do anything to help you and remind you that the library is down the hallway. Another teacher enters the room. They glance at one another and immediately look down at their food. You feel the tension in the air. The teacher who enters tries to say hello and make conversation, but gets one-word responses. You can tell there's more going on in the situation, but you're not sure what. Next, imagine that you're a part of an archaeological dig. You and your team just discovered an underground city. You make your way to what you assume to be the schoolhouse that was used a century ago. You find writing on the wall. First, you try to understand what the letters mean. You've never read this language before. It's your job to figure out what their alphabet is and what each symbol stands for. Once you have figured out how to read the language, you realize that you found the rules to the schoolhouse. Now you understand what the culture valued in the schoolhouse, what they thought was respectable, what they thought was appropriate and not appropriate to do at school. You've just discovered a whole nother meaning to their school and their culture as a whole by figuring out what their words meant. In both of these situations, you used a method of discourse analysis to find meaning in words. A more formal definition of discourse analysis is that it usually refers to a research approach in which language material, such as talk or written text, are examined as evidence of phenomenon beyond the individual person. Discourse analysis is sometimes defined as the analysis of language beyond the sentence. Discourse analysts study larger chunks of language as they flow together. The central phenomenon of discourse analysis is how individuals communicate about a topic, and the intent is to examine the use of language. When studying discourse analysis, you'll find two types of academic work. The first line is conversational discourse analysis. This line is said to have originated in the study of society and people as social beings, especially in sociology and social psychology, and has developed to incorporate a focus on language. The second type is written text discourse analysis. This type focuses on the nature of language. Traditionally, linguistics can be defined narrowly as the study of grammar in a broad sense. The sound systems of language, the grammatical structure of words and of sentences, and more formal aspects of meaning. Looking closer at conversational discourse analysis. Conversational discourse analysis focuses on conversation as it is acquired, as it works in everyday life, as it shows particular cultural norms. Conversational discourse analysis is an approach to the study of social interaction, embracing both verbal and nonverbal conduct. Conversational discourse analysis began with a focus on casual conversation, but its methods were subsequently adapted to embrace more task and institution-centered interactions, such as those occurring in doctors' offices, courts, law enforcement, helplines, educational settings, and the mass media. It is continued as a term for distinctive and successful approach to the analysis of social linguistic interactions. Looking closer at written discourse analysis. Written discourse analysis is a method for describing the ideas and the relationships among the ideas that the text presents. This is used with rhetoric, text linguistics, and psychology. It is concerned with understanding the relations among information and sentences occurring relatively close together in text. The goal for analyzing written text is to come to a semantic description that provides a basis for comparing written text with one another. An example of a semantic description would be like passage readability. Some examples of questions that discourse analysis might address. How is discourse structured? This could mean the physical build of a sentence or how ideas come together in a passage to mean more. How are social actions accomplished in discourse? How we use our words, either written or verbal, to make a social change. How are identities negotiated in discourse, and how are ideologies constructed in discourse? So again, this just analyzes how our words, either written or verbal, can go beyond just what they seem to build an identity for people or an ideology or a societal view. Strengths to discourse analysis. Unlike many of the other methodologies, we found that strengths of discourse analysis lie in the untangibles. Many of them go beyond just physical ease of the research and relate more to what you discover because of the research. So first, you reveal the meaning of texts and situations. That means that researchers and learners and readers of the research are able to get more from their text and from the situation than what met the eye. Discourse analysis helps you gain a comprehensive view. Discourse analysis allows you to work with interesting data. This could include conversations and interviews, observations of what people do, and texts which have been produced for a wide range of purposes. Discourse analysis allows researchers to investigate the practices and interactions of ordinary social life. This allows them to explore everyday situations as part of a larger process and social phenomenon. Discourse analysis allows researchers to investigate particular cultures. They investigate culture through texts of different kinds, images as well as writing, often drawing on analytic approaches to come to a final conclusion. Finally, discourse analysis allows us to obtain practical information about people's lives and experiences. And just as humans, this helps us develop and grow for the future. Some limitations to discourse analysis. First, discourse analysis is just about words. It does not take account of anything else. Next, discourse analysis doesn't take enough account of people. It uses forms of data which appear to push attention towards the individual speaker. Next, it relies on interviews, and they are not an appropriate source of data. Some argue that interviews are not a natural form of talk, and it affects the outcomes. Next, it's not fact-based. It is linked to an assumption that facts and interactions can be distinguished, and therefore a notion of truth. Discourse analysis doesn't have practical applications, and it is argued that discourse analysis is out of date. How to know if discourse analysis is done well. First, many notes are collected. This helps build presentations, papers, or theses. Next, authors will stress the relevance. They move through their analysis based on the issues that they want to present. They're constantly asking, What is interesting about my findings, and why should anyone care? Next, it will provide a lot of evidence, making a compelling case, providing examples that illustrate the point. Another sign of good discourse analysis is that they have a full account of data analysis that might be found in an appendix. Lastly, researchers will show reliability and validity of their research and findings by presenting logic of their argument. Our example of discourse analysis. In the example that we selected, the aim of the study was to identify the effect of using discourse analysis method on skills of reading comprehension, textual analysis, creating discourse, and use of language. Hopefully I can make that more simple for you. The study used a model of a pre-test and post-test control group. There were two groups, one experimental and one control group. In the experimental group, students were taught to focus on language and use that extends beyond sentence boundaries. This encouraged students to reach the hidden essence that lies beneath the surface. The students were encouraged to use metacognition while reading in class and analyzing their text to really dig deeper and get more from what they were just reading in the sentence. Once students had practiced using discourse analysis and digging deeper within the text, it was possible for them to analyze and synthesize their thoughts, to express them effectively and properly, to present them with proper organizational skills, and to get a holistic view. After using discourse analysis methods to read and to work through their text, students reported that lessons were more interesting and attractive and created more opportunities for them to attend and actively participate in the lessons.